right, you're in the Peacock Corner. It's all Peacocks all the time. Strap in, everybody, because we got a great show straight ahead. It's Warren J. Reyerson here. Mike Schrock is signing into the chat right now. And without delay, I'm going to throw it right over to Mike so he can introduce today's guest, and it's a good one. So, hi, Mike.
How's it going, Warren? Great to see you as always. And love that smiling face and that Upper Iowa Albany's Candy Bowl t-shirt you're rocking there. Love that. But I tell you what, Peacock fans, we have a treat for you. We have one of the legendary people of the state of Iowa, current Upper Iowa Vice President of Athletics. You may know him from UNI. You may know him from officiating some Division I basketball games. You may know him because he's your neighbor. However, I'm here to introduce the current Vice President of Athletics, Mr. Rick Hartzell. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. It's nice.
Rick, and we want to learn a little bit more about you before we really get into Peacock Athletics. And so you're the Vice President of Athletics at Upper Iowa. What has been the path that has led you here?
Mike, I was an Iowa farm kid, humble beginnings. We had enough money to eat, but it was tight. And when it rained, my dad was happy. And when it hailed, my dad cried. So we lived on the fringe. But a little bitty town out in north central Iowa, and played all the sports because that's all there was to do. We didn't have video games and telephones, and played all the sports. Eventually went to UNI and played baseball and football there. I was a little bit over my head in football, maybe quite a bit. Baseball, I was able to be a part of that. And then just got into teaching. I taught at Sumner Fredericksburg for a year, which was just Fredericksburg then, with the legendary Steve Staker, who's an Upper Iowa Hall of Famer, one of the great people I've ever been around. And I decided after a couple of years that I thought maybe I could do something else. Went back to UNI, got my master's degree, and coached baseball at Co. and at the University of Iowa, and then tried to work my way into athletic administration, which I thought maybe I could be good at. And I got my first big break, went to Northwestern in Chicago, and got to be around what was then a Big Ten program, but not a big-time Big Ten program. And they've developed that now. From there, got my first AD job at, I think I was 28 or 29. I went to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and we took them from Division II to Division I. Their claim to fame is they're one of the only two 16 seeds to ever beat a 1 seed. Not that I had anything to do with that, but, and then I got to go to Bucknell, and Bucknell it was interesting how it happened. I interviewed there, and the president at the time was a co-college graduate. His name's Gary Soika. And we just hit it off with the coach stuff because I'd been there, and they hired me there. And I spent 11 years in Lewisburg. Beautiful place, wonderful program. We had tremendous success. And then one morning, one of my old mentors from UNI called and said, "We just lost our AD. Are you interested?" And I said, "Sure." So it's the only job I ever wanted. And we go through the process, and I got that job, and got to sit in a seat where Bob Bowlesby sat, one of the legends in college athletic administration, and Stan Sheriff, who was my football coach, who got the Unidome built. So getting to sit in that chair was a dream come true for me, and I spent 9 years doing it. To tell you the truth, I'd probably still be doing it, or trying to do it. But I ran into a situation with a vice president that was just, if I thought the sky was blue, he thought it was red. And it just didn't work. I made the most difficult decision of my life, and I knew that job under those constraints was going to kill me physically. I decided to part ways with my alma mater, and at that point in time, I just went and refereed Division I basketball, 100 games a year for 6 or 7 years. That's quite a grind. You got to be ready to go every night, but then you got to get where you're ready to go the next day. I've got travel stories that are amazing, but I loved that. I loved the nature of that basketball. I loved working hard games. And from 95 to 2010, I got a lot of games. I got a lot of big games. I got to be on television a lot, but I made a bunch of friends and enjoyed that. And then one day, President Duffy called and said, "Hey, we've got an opening for the AD job at Upper Iowa, and somebody told me you're available." I said, "Well, no." It was interesting because Upper Iowa recruited me when I was a kid playing out of high school, and I came over here and visited, and it didn't feel right to me. But in the meantime, when I'd gone through all my work at UNI and other places, I heard from Tony DiCecco and Don Bishop and Sherry Bishop and Rick Heller, who I hired at UNI. By the way, I hired Rick Heller sight unseen. That's a good story too. But I heard from all these people about how great Upper Iowa was, just the greatest place. And, oh, you love the people. And it's different and nobody can really explain it, but it really works. And so when President Duffy called, I came and visited, and it felt right. It felt different to me. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And here I sit. And I'm a Peacock through and through. I've come to love this place and the people, and I enjoy this work. I enjoy it for a million reasons. I've got great colleagues. I've got a lot of people across campus that I care about. We've got tremendous student athletes. We have had virtually no problems in the last 5 or 6 years. There for a couple of years, we had some things, but now it's really cleaned up, and that's due to great coaches. And I just say this, it's nice when people say good things about you. I have one skill, and that is I can hire the right people and I can get out of their way and let them do their work. And I try to run this department like I wanted it run when I was coaching. Tell me what you want me to do. Give me the resources, the best resources that you can give me, and let me know what the expectations are, and then get out of my way and let me do it. And that's the way I try to do it here. I have a family. I have a son that's here, Jackson, playing baseball. I think he's going to do big things. He's playing out in Carroll, Iowa this summer in a league where he has a host family and they play every day. And he just texted me he's at the chiropractor because he threw too many pitches the other night. But he's a beautiful boy and he loves it here. I have a little guy, 10 years old, who was the biggest surprise of all time, but has been a gift from God that is just hard to explain, and wonderful boy, very talented, not very interested quite yet. So we'll see what that does. And then my wife, Jill, is there with us as well. That's my story. I do have an older son that I adopted from El Salvador. I went down there to get him. I think all of us count some of the good things we've done in life, and that's one of my good things. And then I have a daughter that lives in Caledonia, Minnesota, where we're recruiting every kid we can get, and she's trying to help us. And she's a nurse practitioner there with her husband and her 2 boys. So that's my story. It's been a good run, and I'm still healthy, and I still love going to work. That's crazy. I love coming to work here. And I try to put in the time to make this thing the best we can make it.
I know you do, and you do get a lot of Caledonia kids, Mr. Hartzell. And by the way, I'm going to help you sell a few books here. The name of the book is Whistle in a Haystack, an Iowa Farm Boy's view on life's lessons, leadership, and college basketball. I think you wrote it about 10 years ago when you were in between you and I. And yeah, I'm about 2/3 of the way through. It's a fascinating book, great read, a lot of powerful lessons in there. A few that I picked up out of there that I liked was doing something hard. Doing something because it's hard is a good reason. Respect is earned. There are no shortcuts. Own your mistakes, but don't let them own you. You hit that one really hard. My personal favorite was every game when you're officiating matters more than most to somebody playing or watching, regardless of the size of the gym.
Yep.
And I thought those were powerful lessons. I think they hold additional meaning to you. What motivated you to put them in a book?
That's a good question, Warren. I wrote it, and I'm not trying to be funny, but I wrote it because where I grew up, I don't know if many people ever read a book, much less wrote one. And I thought it would be a huge challenge to do it, and it was. And there's a lot of steps you got to take that you don't even think about. You got to get it registered with the right people, and then you got to find somebody to go through it for you and proofread it, and then you got to get somebody to print it. But I wanted my 4 kids to know that I was more than just some guy that went to work, and I wanted them to know something about me that they wouldn't have known otherwise. I like writing. The guy that helped me, Dave Simon, we had a good way that we did it. We're talking about doing another one. I've sold 3,200 copies, and they say if you sold 2,000, you're successful. It's good. It's been fun, and people have responded to it well. And You guys would be interested to know that I told all the basketball stories without the R-rated language. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want people that were not of age to hear those words. And those words are part of that environment, particularly when you're with Bobby Knight or Mike Krzyzewski or whomever. But one of my being proud of myself moments is when Mike Krzyzewski wrote the foreword. And to get that, he and I had a relationship over the years, some good and some a little hostile. But when I asked him to do that, his answer was absolutely yes. And about 3 hours later, I had it. And so that was cool. And writing it wasn't as hard once I got going as I thought. And it was more therapy for me because a lot of stuff came back to me that I had forgotten about, some good, some bad. But the one thing you bring up, Warren, was really important to me. And that is, this is a fact. I worked Duke, North Carolina 7 or 8 times. And almost each one of those times, there was a game the next night somewhere. And I'll never forget one Wednesday night in February, I worked Duke, North Carolina. And the next night I worked at St. Francis of PA, which is in Loretto, Pennsylvania, which is a town about the size of Fayette. And the gym's not much different. And it was a Division I game, but lower level. And I worked there and we're in the middle of the first half. And some guy yells out, "Hey, Hartzell, this is not Duke, North Carolina." And I thought, I don't know if that's a compliment or if that's somebody just, yeah. But the point is, if I went out and tried to work that game just like it was as important as the game before. And for somebody in that gym, it was. And that's the way I looked at it. But writing that book was fun. And I got another one, as they say in the author business, like I'm a big author, I've got another one in the can. So we'll see. We'll see if we can get it to paper someday.
That is some good author speak. Well done. Now, while I was reading your book, I gave much thought to the 2 careers that you often pursued simultaneously and for so many years. I didn't even know that you'd done this many games, something like 4,000 games as a college basketball official and chief collegiate athletics administrator at 4 different schools. Both extremely challenging career pursuits, important work, a lot of pressure, a lot of accountability. Just kind of want to know that with raising 4 kids, how did you do it? And do you still have the original set of knees that you were with?
I don't have the original set of knees. I have one of them. I don't have the other. I would have.
It's pretty good. I haven't done half of what you've done to your knees, and I'm already shopping for one.
If I'd have known how good this knee replacement situation was, I would have done it a long time ago. Now, the first month isn't much fun, but after you get past that, you're okay. There's a couple things there. It just kind of happened. I didn't really plan on this happening. I was refereeing and getting started, and then I went to UMBC, and my supervisor in the Big Ten at the time, because I was just getting started in the Big Ten, called me and said, "I'm going to recommend you to the guy in the ACC," and he recommended me to the guy in the ACC, and he hired me. So the officiating business is funny. It's funny how it happens. I was refereeing in high school here in Iowa when I was still at the University of Iowa. And I decided one day I'd go sit down with the guy that was the supervisor of the Division III league, college league, which Upper Iowa was in at the time. And I went and sat down with him and I said, "I want to work college basketball." And he said, "Okay, tell me what you've been doing." I said, "I worked a couple of years of high school and I think I'm pretty good and I get good ratings." And I said, "Come back and see me in about 4 years." He said, "We'll talk after you have some more experience." I said, "Okay." And 2 weeks later, he called me and he said, "I think I'm going to hire you." He said, "I've never had anybody do what you did." He said, "You weren't necessarily boastful about it, but you said that you think you can do it." And he said, "I've checked around and I think maybe you can too." So he put me in these Division III games. And 2 years later, my partner and I were the highest rated guys in the league. So I thought, you know what? If that worked once, maybe it'll work again. So I called the Big Ten office and I got a meeting with the supervisor of officials, a guy named Herm Rohrig, old-time guy, sitting in his chair in his office, smoking his cigar. And I walked in there and I said the same thing. I said, "Look, I worked a good Division III schedule. I'm pretty good. I get good ratings. I'd like to work in the Big Ten." And he said the same thing. Go back to where you are and I'll call you. We'll talk in 4 or 5 years. And about a month later, he called me and he said, I think I'm going to hire you. And I said, okay. So I got on the Big Ten. They called it the associate staff. So that meant you worked at DePaul, Notre Dame, and a couple of other independent schools that weren't affiliated. So I worked my first game was at Notre Dame. My first college basketball game, a real college basketball game, was at Notre Dame. And I'll never forget it. I was standing on the baseline. We got to play. The ball's going to go in play because it just come out of play. I hand the ball to the kid that's throwing it in. He throws it in. He drops it as he throws it in, and the ball is rolling on the floor. And I don't have my whistle in my mouth for whatever reason. And there's about 8 guys in a pile. And I finally get the whistle blown. And I knew at that moment that I was in over my head a little bit. And I needed to just be quiet and learn. And then I got assigned in the ACC with a little guy named Lenny Wirtz. And Lenny Wirtz was a legend in the officiating business. Worked in the NBA, worked in college basketball. He was about 5'0". And I got 30-some games with him the first year. And we're about a game and a half into it. And he said, look, he said, if you'll just be quiet and call the plays right in front of you, I think I can help make you pretty good. He said, just do that and then learn from me. And I laugh. This is a good story. I'm at North Carolina State with him about 3 or 4 games into it. And these 2 guys, opposing teams, run up the floor. And one guy calls the other guy a really bad name. And there's going to be a problem if we don't get it stopped. So I call a technical foul. And I've no more than called it. And Lenny is right dead in front of me. And he said, where was the ball? Was anybody in the shooting motion? Do you know where the ball is going to go after the technical foul? How many shots are you going to shoot? Who's the foul on? He asked me 8 questions. And I said, Lenny, this is what I know. Number 10 called number 14, a really bad name. I said, that's what and so the point was, I just kept learning and growing with this guy. And I got good at it and got a bunch of breaks. I was in the ACC when the NBA went to 3-man. So they took 15 guys out of the ACC because they were the best. And then all of a sudden we got promoted. I worked my 4th or 5th year in the ACC. I'm standing at Cameron Indoor Stadium at midcourt, getting ready to throw the ball at North Carolina Duke. And it gives me goosebumps right now because there was not a chance in the world that I was ready to do that. But it worked. And I'll tell you what I love. I love standing in that tunnel, getting ready to walk out there when you knew that in a few minutes all hell was going to break loose and you needed to control it somehow. I don't know, like that. And if I could tell you this, if I could still run, I'd go work today because I enjoyed kind of being able to control that chaos. Loved the give and take with the coaches. That was something I really liked. I was at Northwestern one night. They're playing Indiana. And a kid for Indiana goes to the basket and he hits this kid right up under the chin as he tries to lay it in. And I've got the whistle just a tick late. In officiating, you're better to be a little bit late than you are to be a little bit early. I was late. And I come to report it at Bobby Knight, right in front of Bobby Knight, and he screams to me, that call was late. You were late. You know you were late. And he said it about 4 times. And I looked at him and I said, I was late, but I was right. And I don't know why that came out of my mouth. It just did. And from that point on, Knight and I were good, man. We were good together. Mike Krzyzewski's famous words to his team all the time were, next play. Hey, make the next play. Or Christian or Shane, no worries, make the next play. He'd do that all the time. I heard him say it 1,000,000 times. So we're at Maryland one night with about 6 minutes to go in the game, and Maryland and Duke used to be a huge rivalry. Harder game to work than Duke, North Carolina, to tell you the truth. And we're going down to the wire, and it's Duke's up by 3 or 4, and he's after me on a play, and he won't stop, and it's 2 or 3 times, and most of the time you give him a lot of leeway, particularly late in the game, but he wouldn't stop. And I finally wheeled around, and I looked right at him, and I said, hey, next play. I don't know why I said that. It just came out. And from that point on, we were good. And I got in the car to leave, and he's on the press conference after the game. And he said, I got a technical foul from one of the best officials in the country, and I deserved every bit of it. And I shouldn't have put our team in that position. Thank goodness we still won. And it was over. And from that point on, I was good with him. What you find out in the officiating business, it's just like walking to school and having somebody steal your lunch. Until you stop it, they're going to keep stealing it. And that's the way I looked at it with those guys. I wanted to be firm, but friendly. I wanted them to think I was a good guy, but that they knew that if they crossed that line, I'm going to take action. And I've applied that to a lot of situations in my life, and it almost always works.
You know, Rick, I can vouch for you being somebody that hires really well. And I'm going to pull this a little bit back more to your position as an AD. And I've heard this story about you hiring Rick Heller, another small town Iowa boy, having some success at D3 Upper Iowa, applies for the UNI job. You hire him sight unseen. I've heard this story, but would you share that with us and a little bit of what made you to decide to hire him right then and right now?
It was one of my first couple days at UNI. The previous baseball coach had left before I got there. And I walked into my office and I sat down and I had my associate AD and I said, what are the 5 things that need to get done? And he said, you got to hire a baseball coach. We don't have one. And then he listed 3 or 4 other things. And I said, let's go back to the baseball thing because I'm a baseball guy through and through. And he said, it isn't the most popular job because it's hard. We don't have enough scholarships. We play at a stadium off campus. We don't really have an indoor spot. And he said, I think we have 2 really good candidates. One of them's at Wartburg and one of them's at Upper Iowa. And he started to explain to me the situation and the merits of both of them. So I picked up the phone and called Heller. And we talked for 15 minutes. And I picked up the phone and called the other guy. And I walked into my associate AD's office and I said, I'm going to hire Heller. He goes, you've never seen him. I said, I don't have to see him. I know that this is the right guy. He's dealt with a situation that isn't much different than ours. No real great facility to practice in. They do have a stadium or a field on campus, but he's done nothing but win. He gets great reviews from everybody I've talked to. People that I trust say he's one of the best people they've ever been around and a great baseball coach. We're going to hire him. And then we did. And here's a really good story. The first season that Heller is our coach, there were a couple things that happened. He's practicing in the Unidome in the middle of track practice when they're shooting off the starting pistol. And it's crazy. Never one complaint. We got to hire an assistant coach and we can't pay him enough. Never one complaint. We get to the season and our first Missouri Valley Conference series was against Wichita State. And at that time, Wichita State was a national power in baseball. And they came to Riverfront Stadium. I'll never forget this. They were number 6 ranked team in the country. And we're playing, and we get to about the 3rd or 4th inning of the first game on Friday night. And we were pretty good, and Heller had made them even better. Rick Heller there is not a better baseball coach in the country. There's a play and a throw to the plate when we're on defense, and our catcher catches it, makes a tag on the Wichita State guy, and they call him out. And he was out. So the Wichita State player gets up and starts walk back to the dugout, and it's the 3rd out of the inning. And our catcher at the time takes the ball and doesn't fire it, but just gently throws it to hit this kid in the back. Just threw it easy. I'm not quite sure why he did it. And I see Heller pop out of the dugout, and he walks out to the catcher, and he puts his arm around him. And the next inning, we had a new catcher. And I said to my associate AD, we hired the right guy. And we did. I went to Rick Heller in his 2nd year, and I said, hey, my nephew is about 5'0", and he's a left-handed catcher from Garner, Iowa. I said, he wants to help you. He said, send him in. Heller made him the bullpen catcher for 3 years, took him on every trip, and he was in the bullpen. When he was a senior toward the end of the season, he put him in a game or 2. If Rick Heller had a flat tire right now on Interstate 80 in Davenport, and he called my nephew Jay, he'd be there to help him. And that's what Rick Heller did. He built a culture of guys that would play as hard as they could play pretty competitively, and they loved him. They loved Rick Heller. So that was the first good hire at UNI, and we had a couple others that followed, but that was the first one, and I hired Rick Heller sight unseen. True story.
It would be hard to find somebody who better meets the definition of a baseball lifer than Rick Heller. But that is a great story.
He's the best. He could take average guys and make them above average, and he could take below average guys to make them average and win. It's phenomenal. And I was able to help him at Indiana State because I knew the AD there really well. Ron Barrowman was his name. I'll never forget. Heller said, "I'm interested. Can you help me?" I called him and I said, "Look, I'm going to tell you one thing. We're friends. You need to hire Rick Heller as soon as you can." I said, "You will never regret what I just told you. I guarantee it." And he hired him, and Heller took him to the NCAA tournament. And then when it was the Iowa job, he called Gary Barta. I said, "Gary, this is the guy. You guys should have hired him 2 coaches ago, and now you've got your chance to hire him. He'll do the same thing that he did at UNI, and he did at Indiana State." So he's a wonderful coach.
Let's move, if we can, to the State of the Peacock Nation segment of the show. Here, I believe number 4 of the competition in the Great Lakes Valley Conference is directly ahead. And from most every angle, that looks like the right move. How soon after you signed on in 2018, Mr. Hartzell, did you know that it would be the right move for Upper Iowa to do that?
I knew about 2 days into it when I saw the football schedule and saw Duluth, Bemidji, Augustana, Mankato back to back. That was going to be a problem for us. So we started talking about that, looking at options right away. I worked really hard on trying to make that happen. When we finally got in, I got a real laugh out of the commissioner. He said, "You didn't have to work that hard." He said, "We knew we wanted you and we knew you wanted us." And so, yeah, it's the right league. It's the right place for us. I think our coaches have been surprised at how good the league is in most sports. People say, "Why did you go?" There's a lot of reasons. One of them is because we wanted to get with schools that were like us in size and mission and scope. That was one thing. Secondly, we wanted to not have to go to North Dakota in the winter with your women's basketball team, which made me nervous every time they left. Not that I wasn't nervous when the men left, but to have a women's team in a ditch and a bus in the snowstorm is not something we wanted to sign up for. So there was that reason. Third, we thought we could be more competitive. And fourth, and this was a part of it, we have to recruit 50 to 60 football players a year, somewhere in there. And when you're 2-9 and 1-10 and 2-9 and 1-10, that's hard to do. Can you get them recruited? Yeah, but you can't get guys, for the most part, that are good enough to help you change the way that football is going. And when you're recruiting that many kids, it's important. And football had not been great here. And I think we could all say that. There have been some great moments and some really good players, really good Hall of Famers. But to get in that league and to play Southwest Baptist and William Jewell and McKendree and Quincy and people that are just like us, I was pretty convinced that we'd have a really good chance to build a football program that could be above 500 every year. And I think we got the right coach. We certainly got the right culture. We got the right kind of kids that have lifted that culture. And to win 9 games last year with this team, they did it, and the coaching staff did it. But to be a part of it was something I'm really proud of. So that league has been good to us. We're hanging in there in basketball. Both men's and women's basketball have been good. We're the only team to be in the tournament with both men's and women's basketball the last 3 years. Proud of that. But we haven't competed as well in that league as I thought we would. Baseball, softball have struggled in that league. When we were the Northern Sun, we were the southernmost school in a northernmost league. Now we're the northernmost school in a southern league. It makes a difference. People can say, well, it doesn't matter. Well, it does. Maryville can get outside a month before we can in baseball or softball, and it matters. So we need to do better. We need to be more competitive. I think we're headed toward that. I think we're finding our footing in that league, and it's the right place for us to be. No doubt.
We're starting to move into a little bit on just the kind of unpacking year 3. Talked a little bit about the football, moving into winter sports a little bit. You talked a little bit about basketball, but to a point that you had made a moment ago around aligning your school with other schools that have on-campus enrollments that more resemble yours, athletic budgets that more resemble yours, results in more competitive games, more competitive seasons, and a better experience for the athletes and their families. The kind of geographic center of your recruiting net shifted southward a little bit. You're figuring that out. I believe all the sports are moving in the right direction. Spring sports, very challenging because you're right. You're competing against schools that have another month of warm weather to work out in. But those are all things that just work out. The first time that we met was in Sioux Falls. We were at the Augustana game. And Joe Stacy invited you into the booth to talk at halftime. And you had mentioned, I was listening off in the other side of the ring, that the scope of work for an AD is essentially the same no matter the size of the school. Now, that surprised me when you originally said that. But then you kind of unpacked your answer a little bit for Joe, and then I got it. I assume that here it is years later and you still feel that way. I kind of was hoping you would unpack that for our listeners a little bit, how your job now has many similarities to your previous 3 stops.
Yeah, it's the same work. It doesn't really change. My first job is to try to provide some leadership in this department, but that isn't really that hard. You've got some really good coaches with some experience that buy in. I think my background probably has helped me a little bit here with some of that. That they have a feeling that I maybe know what I'm doing or understand what they're supposed to be doing. I'm pretty simple. I'm not the smartest guy, but I know this. I want to build a family culture, family-based culture where you feel like you've got support, where you feel like people are going to care about you, where my door is shut right now, and it's the only time all day it's been shut, and it'll be open as soon as we're done. I want people to be able to walk in here and sit down and laugh and cry and talk about their program or talk about their family. We have a rule here. Anything with your family, you go take care of it. I don't care if it's a day, a week, a month, or 6 months. You go. And if you have to go, we'll get somebody to coach soccer practice. We'll get somebody to help in the weight room, whatever it might be. So you build a culture like that, and you try to hire the best people that you can hire. And then you do the fundraising when it's necessary, and you do the public speaking when you have to. But the job doesn't change. And now the good thing about these jobs is it's never the same every day. There's always something a little different that I have to deal with. An hour before this, I'm trying to hire a cheerleading coach, and I'm trying to get a head strength and conditioning coach. Those are both ends of the spectrum, right? I mean, you're looking for 2 different kinds of, but I enjoy that. And I enjoy selling Upper Iowa to those people. The truth is, Mike and Warren, if you get the right coaches and they're good enough, you can make it work. I've seen coaches who had everything you could ask for, the greatest facilities, a great budget, a super town to recruit to, all the great academic programs, good weather, and I've seen them fail. I could name them. And then I've seen coaches who are in the smallest towns with the worst budgets in an impossible league, bad facilities, and they win. That's them. That's those people and their grit and determination and talents and all of that. We've got some of those. Justin Moss, and Casey, and my Coach Hoskins, who's built the football program from, and I'm not trying to speak badly about anybody, but it was a mess. And he's gotten it fixed and he's got the culture right where he wants it. And I don't know if we'll be as good next year as we were this past year, but there's a lot of games where I'd bet on us right now. Because I think we're in a good position. So that's the way I look at it. I love the work. I love the people. It lifts me up. It gives me energy. And we're going to try as hard as we can to get this thing where we're competitive in the middle of the league or better in all our programs. That's the goal. I think we've got both of the soccers fixed. I'm certain we've got volleyball and football fixed. And that's important. I've always thought in my years, if you can get football, volleyball, and 1 or 2 of the soccers to get going in the fall and have some success, the rising tide raises all the boats. We're always good in the winter, both basketballs, particularly since Coach Moss has been here. And we want to talk about a guy that's done a tremendous job. He has. and Casey and Coach Grimm. That's good. And Mike Lewis has done a good job with the low budget and golf. We need to get baseball and softball fixed. And I think we have the coaches to do it. I think we have the facilities to do it. We're trying hard to get that done. Is it a challenge? Heck yes. Because as I said to our coaches, the first staff meeting I had, when I drove into Fayette for the first time in a long while, you go, how in the world do they do this here? How does this work? And I said to our coaches, I can tell you right now, I could name 50 reasons why you can't do it. 50, right off the top of my head. But we got to find the reasons how you can and why you can. And we need to find the kids that buy into that. We've pretty much been able to do that, I think, at a good level. Another thing I'm proud of is this university has needed athletics to deliver 400 or more kids, student athletes a year in order to keep this storefront open, because we make our money here online and self-paced and all of that. But if you don't have this Fayette storefront and you don't have this place where our alumni can come back and support it and gather and love this beautiful little campus, Upper Iowa would be in some trouble. I'm proud of what the coaches and all of us have been able to do to try to keep that going too. Peacock Nation's alive, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Rick, you spoke a little bit of the coaches there. I'm fortunate enough to be on campus, and I get to see the athletic administration that you have working alongside with you. I want to give you a few minutes to maybe talk a little or speak a little bit about those hardworking folks.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike. Howie Thompson and my right-hand guy, and he's tremendous. This is hard to believe. Howie and I have worked together for 10 years up till now, and we have never had one word between us that was in anger. Never. Now, he's done a couple things that I wonder about, and I've done some things that he wonders about. But when we walk out the door, we're arm in arms. I'm a big fan of Howie's. He's tremendous. I'd do anything I could do to help him, and wonderful family and great human being who I enjoy working with. About 4 years ago, we moved Willie McGowan from the head men's soccer coach into our business and compliance spot. And I said this one other time, I hired Greg McDermott at Northern Iowa, and when he left, we hired Ben Jacobson. And I said at the time, I thought he might be pretty good at it. And he turned out to be a lot better than pretty good.
Yep.
When we hired Willie McGowan in this job, I said, I think Willie will be good at this. And I can't tell you how good he is. He is so good at this work. It's incredible. So I really enjoy Willie, and we get along great as well. Never a moment of disdain between us. We've just hired Rachel Caspers to take over the student athlete development job. And I'm really excited about that. She'll be great coming out of athletic training. She knows all the kids. They need that place to go. So that's good. Matt Ruckert runs our athletic training. There's nobody better. I know people say, oh, you're just saying that. No, I'm not. There is nobody better. And if there's an issue down there, he solves it, and I don't have to. And he hires great people, and he takes care of our kids at such a high level, and never a complaint. It's just fabulous. And we've had a great strength and conditioning situation here the last 4 or 5 years. And we're trying to hire a new strength and conditioning coach right now, head coach. That's the most important hire of these 8 or 9 we've got open. It is the most. He touches every one of those kids. And if he does his job right, they go from an average Division II athlete to a better than average Division II athlete. And there's no doubt about that. You can see it happen. You can see the vertical jump. You can see the strength. You can see the size. You can see all of that just by looking. When I came into this office, one of the first things somebody said to me is, boy, you're going to hate that office. I said, why? He said, well, the weight room's right below you, and they play the music and they yell and scream. And I'm telling you, I love that. It makes my day to hear that. But it's tremendous. And we've had a great run of couple strength and conditioning coaches, and we need to get this one right. We're in the process of that. And the other thing I'd say, Mike, is President Duffy was great. He called me way too much and asked too many questions, but he was great, and I loved him. And I'm a big fan of Kathy Franken, and she's done a great job. It's great to work with her, but she helps us do the best we can. And when we can't have something, she says, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And I understand that. So it's been wonderful. There's people all across campus this is the strongest group across campus here. Billy Cowley and Seth Miner and Josh Grettis and Ashley and Mike and that staff down there and student life. It's the best we've had in my time here. And we're all trying hard to make it good for these kids. I'd say one other thing. My guy Jackson, my son, had a chance to go play baseball several places. And he came here and visited, obviously, a lot of times, then came on an official visit and all that. And we went to all these places. And he said, Dad, I'm going to go to Upper Iowa. And I was shocked by that because he comes from a 5A high school and all that business. And he loves it here, playing summer baseball. And then he said, I can't wait to get back there. So I think that tells you everything you need to know. Kids love it here, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's not for everybody, but once they come to town and have a look around and just envision themselves there, then you know you got them. And I believe Jackson's a good example of that. He envisioned himself there. I also don't think he minded the idea of maybe playing a little ball in front of his pop. That didn't sound too bad to him either, I don't think.
No, and
but I think that's a wonderful story.
That's good for me. Last night, he played in Carroll with the Carroll Merchants, which I wish I had the time to tell you about that. It's so fabulous. You can't believe it. And that's the first game he's ever played that I wasn't there in person. I watched it on the stream, and I called him this morning and I said, you're getting out in front. You got to stay back on your back foot. And he said, you weren't here, but I was there the night before when he pitched and did great. So yeah, it's a big deal for me. And it gives me goosebumps to think about watching him for the next 4 years.
I know we're running short here on time, and I want to thank you as well as Warren, John, the Peacock Corner Show. Thank you for being with us. So I'm going to give you one last little soundbite here and just put the bow on the 2025-2026 Peacock Athletics season, but we're getting ready for 2026-2027. Why don't you tell our listeners out there why they should tune in to the Peacocks in the year to come?
I think you should tune into the Peacocks because we get small town Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois kids who come here and play because they want to. And they play because they enjoy playing. And then eventually they play because they love being a Peacock and representing that. These aren't 5-star kids. These are 2-star kids or 1-star kids who come here and work their tails off to try to do the best they can. There's no NIL money. There's no full scholarships. They got to pay part of their way, almost every single one of them. And to come and watch them play and succeed, there's nothing better. And I don't care what anybody says. When you see Peacock football in the middle of October in that stadium with all those colors on a beautiful fall day, it doesn't matter whether you're there or whether you're sitting in Iowa City. It is the same thing. You got young kids, young guys out there playing as hard as they can play to try to do the best they can. And it carries right over. You come to one of our wrestling meets, and if that doesn't give you goosebumps, then you don't have a heartbeat, men or women. And we're getting the women's wrestling going, and that's quite an experience in itself. Our women get 3.54 grade point average, 3.54. Our men are at 3.22 out of 400 kids. So we put academics first, getting a degree first, being a great human being and trying to do some things outside of your comfort zone for other people. And then you go play as hard as you can. And if that isn't what people like, then I don't know what college athletics should be about. So we'd invite everybody to come and see them. Not one single behavioral issue off campus or on campus in 4 years. So good kids doing the right thing. And that's what gets me excited. Somebody said to me 10 years ago, why in the world are you going back? And I said, I'll tell you why. Because I want to walk out on that field on Saturday or into that gym on Wednesday night and have that feeling in my stomach that lets me know that this is important to me and I'm a little part of it. That's why. And we would invite everybody that's out there to come back and do that with us.
Great thoughts, all. A lifetime in athletics, a fine steward of this university, a friend of the show. Upper Iowa Vice President for Athletics, Rick Hartzell. Anytime you want to come back and hang out with us and chat some more, you let us know and we will make it
Thank you,
again.
Warren. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks again.